If you want to reach 1000 Elo, you need to understand a very important concept in chess known as a pin. Now, when I was around 800 Elo, I didn't know this concept, and a lot of the times I could have used this concept to actually win games, but because I didn't know it, or because I didn't know how to use it, I ended up just losing games even though I was supposed to win them. So in this video, I'm going to first explain to you what a pin is, and then I'm going to show you 3 examples that you can use in your real games. Now, a pin is when your opponent cannot move a piece. In this case, it's their knight, because they would end up losing material, so a queen, for example. And actually, there are 2 types of pins in chess, and these 2 are the only ones you need to know. The first one is called a relative pin, and this is when the opponent's piece can technically move, but it would just end up in them losing a whole bunch of material. And the second type of pin is known as an absolute pin. So in this case, if we play bishop to b5, we're going to pin this knight to the king, which means that this knight cannot move at all. So basically, it's not even an option, right? Whereas for this knight, they could technically move. It would just end up in them losing a queen. So these are the only types of pins that you need to understand. Now, at this point, some of you might be thinking, but hold on. If a relative pin means that the knight can't move because it will just end up in them losing a whole bunch of material, then what is the difference between an absolute pin and a relative pin if they can't move the knight anyway in both cases? You might be thinking, okay, what is the difference? Like, if they can't move the knight anyway, then why do we need to talk about an absolute and relative pin in the first place? And the reason comes down to a very simple tactic. Now, let's just say in this position, our opponent plays a6, and for some reason you want to bring your king to d2, but this would actually be a huge blunder. Because remember the relative pin that we talked about, right? Now, I did say that the knight can't move because it would end up in them losing a whole bunch of material. But in this case, if they move the knight with check, then actually our opponent would win material. Because notice now, the knight is giving us check, right? And we can't take the knight with anything, so we have to move our king. And after we move our king, then they're going to take our bishop and we're going to be losing material. So the basic difference is that when you're pinning a knight to the king, you don't have to worry about any tactics with the knight jumping in, potentially checking your king and picking up your bishop, right? There's just none of those tactics that could happen. Whereas with a relative pin, right, this knight can sometimes move out of the way and give you a check, and then you're gonna have to move your king and then they're gonna take your piece. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you play your games. Okay, so with all that being said, now I'm going to go over 3 examples of how to actually use the concept of a pin in your own games. Now, this first example is pretty simple, but you'd be surprised that a lot of beginners don't actually see this. Now, pause the video right now if you want to find a move that wins for black. So at first glance, it seems that the material is even, right? We both have a rook and a minor piece. But what you want to notice is that this knight and this rook are on the same diagonal, which means that there could be some sort of pin tactic involved. Now, the move here is bishop to f6, and this will actually win you material on the spot and you're going to win the game. And the reason this works is because we notice that the rook is undefended. So if they move the knight anywhere, let's just say to a4, then they're going to drop the rook and we're gonna win the game. But second of all, this knight is actually undefended, so there is no way to actually save both pieces. Whichever one they move, we're gonna end up winning the other one. So if they move their, let's say, rook here, then we're just gonna take the knight and we're gonna be up a piece. So the thought process in your brain should be something like, okay, this rook is undefended, this knight is also undefended, and the rook and knight are on the same diagonal. So potentially, if I have a bishop that targets this diagonal, then I'm basically going to win material. And the first thought that happens should be, okay, bishop to f6. That's a very natural move, and that pins the knight. Now let's move on to the second example, and this one is going to be a little bit more tricky to spot, but hopefully after I explain the solution, then you will understand, okay, this is exactly why this works. Now, as always, if you want to, you can pause the video to try to find the winning tactic for white in this position. Okay, so first of all, we have even material, right? Both have a rook and a knight. But the thing in this position is that this knight is very weirdly placed on this c3 square. And the first thought that comes to your mind is, okay, can we attack the knight? And the answer is yes, of course we can bring our rook to c1. And this is the solution because now the knight cannot move. But there's actually a reason that it can't move. The second detail to notice here is that this king and this rook are pretty vulnerable, right? And the thing to notice here is that if we somehow give a check to this king with our rook, right? If we somehow get our rook to the c8 square, give a check, then once the king moves, then we're going to take our opponent's rook and we're going to be up a piece. So the first thought that comes to your mind in this original position should be, okay, so how can I get my rook to this position? Now, a lot of beginners, they look at this position and they think, okay, well, this knight is attacking my a2 pawn, so I can't move my rook anywhere because they will just take my pawn, right? Well, actually, this is wrong because you need to understand that a very important tip for beginners is you need to expand your vision beyond your side of the board. So instead of just focusing your vision on your own half of the board, right? You see that if you move the rook, then you lose the pawn. You need to expand your vision to see your opponent's side of the board, right? You see that, okay, if my rook lands on c8, then after they move their king, I'm going to win their rook. So your first thought should be, okay, how can I bring my rook to c8? And you shouldn't worry about rook to c1 and knight taking your a2 pawn because then you can just bring your rook to c8 anyway. And you're going to win a rook and you're going to win the game. So just expanding your vision to the whole board instead of just your own side of the board is going to be a very useful tip for beginners who want to reach 1000 elo. So the pin here is simply going rook c1. And basically this knight will be pinned because if it moves anywhere, like we said, then we're just going to bring our rook to c8 and then take their rook. So in this position, our opponent probably has to play something like castles or like king e7, and then we're going to take the knight and we're going to be up a knight in a winning endgame. Now, I do have to mention a very important trick that your opponent can sometimes play here. And this goes back to my point earlier that I made about relative pins. And the thing you need to keep in mind is sometimes your opponent can move the knight but give you a check and then they will actually escape. So let's just say back in this position, right? Let's just say you play something like king to like g3, for example, and your opponent plays something like a6, and now you try the same tactic, right? Rook to c1, and you think, okay, if they move the knight, then I'm gonna, check the king and then grab the rook. But in this case, you actually will blunder because this doesn't work because the knight can actually move and give you a check. So if they move the knight to, let's just say, e4, for example, probably e4 is not the best move because you can bring your king to f4 and attack the knight. But let's just say, okay, they bring the knight here. Well, in this case, it's just forking your king and rook, and you'd never have a chance to play rook to c8 in the first place, right? King to h2, and then you lose your rook. So you always have to think about what can your opponent actually move their pin piece to. Because if you just blindly play rook c1, sometimes your opponent can move the pin piece into a position where it gives you a check, and after that it's just game over for you. Okay, now we're going to move on to our third and final example. Now this one's going to be a little bit tricky, but just bear with me because I will explain everything at the end. But if you want to have a go at this yourself, it's going to be white to move. Find the winning tactic in this position for white. Okay, so the solution to this puzzle is very fascinating because we are dealing with multiple pins in this position. So first of all, what I noticed is that, okay, the material is even, right? We both have a queen, a rook, and a minor piece. But the thing that should click in your brain straight away is that this knight is the only piece defending this queen. So if we can somehow get rid of this knight, then we can take this queen for free, right? And we're going to be winning the game because obviously when you're up a queen, you're going to win the game. So how can we exploit the fact that this knight is the only defender of this c6 queen? Well, the thing you want to notice is that this knight can only move if it's not pinned, right? And this is actually very close to being pinned because if the king was on d8, then this knight would be pinned because our bishop would be pinning the knight to the king, right? So then your thought should be, okay, how can I get this king to this d8 square where this knight would be pinned and it can't move to defend the queen? Well, this is where we play a very brilliant rook sacrifice, rook to d8, sacrificing our rook. And notice that the king has nowhere to go, right? It has to take the rook. So after it takes the rook, now we've successfully completed our objective, which is getting the king to d8 and pinning this knight to the king. So now that this knight can't move, we can take the queen with our queen. And we're going to be up a queen because this knight can't take the queen, right? So your thought process should be something like, okay, well, this queen is only defended by this knight. So if I can somehow make this knight unable to move, then I'm going to win this queen for free. So how can I make this knight unable to move? Well, if I can somehow pin this knight, then I would achieve that. But how can I pin this knight? Well, I can only pin it if the king was on d8. So how can I get the king to d8? Well, very simple. Just play rook to d8, force the king to d8, and now we've successfully pinned the knight and we can take the queen. So hopefully this video gave you a pretty good idea of how to use the concept of a pin and how to actually apply it in your own games. Now, if you found value from this video, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future educational chess videos. But with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.